On this episode of AV Week, what distributors and manufacturers can do to help dealers on the job site, emerging markets within the AV industry, and what commercial integrators need to know about today's digital signage market. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 375, recorded Friday, November 2nd, 2018. Emerging markets.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by SDVOE, the platform for networked AV, and by Christie Digital, and by FSR.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information of this week, first and foremost, her name is Corey Schaefer, and she is from QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. Also with us is Kelly Perkins. Kelly is from NSCA and heads up their Ignite program. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, everyone.
Also with us, a friend of mine I got to see this week in New York for New York Digital Signage Week and the Afixa Women's event in New York City. Gina Sansevero from Atlas IED. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you for joining us this week. We had a blast.
Oh my gosh.
And wait, and did you say Atlas IED?
I did.
Yes, I'm new. It's been 3 weeks.
Well, actually, all three out of the four of you have had new jobs this year. The last person on our panel here is Mr. Joel Carroll, who is now with Wolf Vision. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Good seeing you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, first story we got here actually comes to us from New York Digital Signage Week and our friends over at SCN. Megan Dutta writes about the Coffee and Controversy event that I actually went to. Actually sat next to Megan during Tuesday morning. They had a panel. It's the DSF, the Digital Signage Federation, puts on this panel, has done so for the last 4 or 5 years of New York Digital Signage Week. They bring together folks and they do this Coffee and Controversy, which coffee part indicates it's breakfast, so it's an early morning, and the controversy is it's a panel discussion. And Dave Haynes from 16.9 was the moderator. It's a pretty good event. If you go to New York for New York Digital Signage Week, would highly recommend you attending. The last 2 years has actually been in Google's headquarters in New York, so pretty good space. You know, you get a sense of how actually tech giants like Google are using, not only digital signage, but also how they're using the AV technology that all of us kind of put in, because the room is an auditorium, we've got cameras, projectors, and audio. But what I wanted to do is Kelly, I want to start with you from integration standpoint, integrators. Digital signage has become a vertical that a lot of really smart people smarter than me, have written about for well over 10 years, about it being a good vertical for integrators to get into. What exactly can integrators, and what is the role of the integrators when it comes to today's digital signage market?
Well, there's a huge opportunity in digital signage, I think. And it's great because it's, depending on how you go to market with it, you can use it as a recurring revenue model, right? If you do it right, you can hire some designers on staff. You can actually create content for people. And it's pretty much widely used in every application now, from, walking through an airport to going to Target to, anywhere and everywhere. So I think the opportunity is still pretty big. I think you just have to be a little creative on how you make money, because, like screens and monitors and everything, they're getting cheaper and cheaper. But if you get creative on how to use them in different applications, I think you could still make a lot of money.
Gina, Kelly's right. Actually, Jeff Hastings from Bright Sign made the comment. He was on the panel at Coffee and Controversy, made the comment that every screen is a digital signage screen, or could be potentially. What are you've had a couple different positions in the industry. Now you're with Atlas IED, but your last couple positions, you've worked with integrators, but also in education where digital signage is also increasing its use, or they're increasing their use of digital signage. So where do you see the integrator fitting in, and at what point do they start, really taking this seriously and getting involved in it?
So in higher ed, we see it for a number of different applications, right? It could be for wayfinding, it could be for menu boards in their cafeterias and food places. It could be for scheduling, and it could be for mass notification. I mean, we have a ton of different applications in higher ed specifically to be able to use digital signage. From an integrator standpoint, I think Kelly is spot on with the content development, because the hardest part for higher education to actually be able to adopt this, so that barrier to adoption is generally who owns the content, who develops the displays, the stuff that you display. I'm sorry, it's 2:00 in the afternoon in New York, and my brain just doesn't seem to want to work today. Who has the content creation, and then who updates it, and then who updates the hardware behind it, and all of that stuff. So there's definitely an opportunity for integrators, but reducing that barrier to entry for higher education, I think, is going to be key for them.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to take a left turn and say digital signage in places like corporate, like the Salesforce Tower in New York. Everybody should just Google the Salesforce Tower in New York, because they actually hired a content creation company. But when the theme of Salesforce is the national parks. So when you walk into the lobby, it's about a full immersed experience, and they have this huge wall that they're leveraging for it, and being able to change it.
So very, very cool, considering that we used to think of digital signage as a single screen, and now digital signage could be, interactive video walls, right?
Yes.
Well, and you also have projector mapping figuring into digital signage as well. There's a building up in Chicago that a company took. I'm going to get this number wrong, but it's either 20 or 30 Christie projectors and projector mapping onto the building in downtown Chicago. So you've got all sorts of different new applications that you can. It's not just, like Gina said, it's not just one single screen anymore.
Yeah, and the Salesforce Tower does that as well. On the very top of it, they're really leveraging the outside as well, like this building you're mentioning in Chicago. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's digital signage is such an easy way for us to raise awareness to the industry that we work in too. I mean, I'm totally speaking from an Ignite standpoint and raising awareness of the industry in general, but it's like one of the easiest, coolest things we do, right?
Yeah.
So, we should be getting more and more involved in digital signage applications and starting to get more creative.
And on the creative side, Vix has been talking about pulling in the creative makers, right? So kind of an edge of our industry that has been kind of non-technical inputs and outputs, et cetera, but that creative side, which makes the cool factor very cool.
And I think to Cora's point, that brings in a whole bunch of new people into our market as we're still looking for new people to get in. Some of the animators and the other people, I don't know that they even look at digital signage as an opportunity for a career. And, I foresee it exploding. I mean, if you look at pictures you see in Japan, digital signage is everywhere in certain cities as you walk around. Go to Vegas. I mean, digital signage is everywhere. I mean, even in the restrooms. All of this it needs content.
And it's an attraction in itself. I mean, Times Square,
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely come to
Absolutely.
New York and visit me, and I can show you tons of signage.
I love
and
New
have
York.
good food. Yes! Yes!
Sorry. It's my afternoon coffee.
Well, and to back on what Kelly was saying about bringing awareness, that's something that folks at least in the New York area can do. You can take a group of students, whether it's high school students or college students, who are thinking about their careers and they are creatives, like Joel said. You can take them to the middle of Times Square and say, look, this is AV. You absolutely can have a career in this, whether you are a creative or not. Phil Linger and the folks at Show and Tell actually have an app that you can download just in New York right now. But it is all of the signs, all of the digital signage throughout Manhattan. So not just in Times Square, but up and down the island. You can hold, it's an AR app, so you hold it up to the screen. It'll tell you who made the screen, who owns the screen, the content owner on it. So it's a kind of both sides. You can get the technical side as well as the creative side, and you can find out exactly who's doing it. And from a student standpoint and an awareness standpoint, figure out whether or not those people are hiring, whether or not they need their interns to actually kind of get in the door.
That's really awesome.
That's
I
really
didn't
awesome,
know that
yeah.
they did that. That is very, very cool. I'm going to have
Super
to find that.
cool.
Can you send me info on it?
Yeah, we'll put a link on that. But yeah, I'll shoot you a link to the app.
I mean, so much of, when I went into the local high school over here to talk to the students about the AV industry as part of the Ignite Ambassador program, what really resonated with them were those high profile, kind of flashy installations, right? Whether it was something like digital signage in Times Square or something like the halftime show at the Super Bowl. Those things are what's really going to Kelly's point, bring people in and increase the awareness. And while, yes, that is the bells and whistles part of our industry, and that's not every installation, that's where the conversation starts.
But it's becoming common. I mean, when you have a corporate company invest in a significant amount in the reception area, I mean, we didn't see that 10 years ago.
Sure.
No, not at all.
No,
Well, especially now that we have open workplace, like that open floor plan in the workplace, that reception area sees straight through to the back of the warehouse sometimes. So the entire space has to be transformed into, something that was way more higher end than it ever was before. And again, my grammar today is just failing me.
It's all good. We got you.
I need my I Love New York mug with coffee in it.
Well, I'm in St. Louis now. So. All right. Next story here comes to us from Sound of Communications and actually out of Nashville, Top Golf. And again, if you're not familiar with Top Golf, it is a bar and grill where you go to play golf, and actually a video game version of it. You hit a golf ball and you drink beer. The Nashville location opened up, and Sound of Communications did an article on it. And the one thing that I wanted to bring out here is the quote from one of the folks there from Top Golf, quote unquote, "The biggest AV challenge here is that this is both an indoor and an outdoor venue. The video displays and the speakers have to be able to withstand being pounded by the weather all year long, also by golf balls, but also work well in an environment that's half inside and half outside." That's kind of how this works, is that you are sitting at or standing at a platform. The golf area, I guess, the what would be the,
Where you tee off.
yeah, well, no, I'm the of the green, right, or the fairway. Is I don't play golf, right? I play.
It's obvious. It's obvious.
Where you hit the ball is outside, right? The one in Vegas has actually digital signage, not to bring that back in, but these ginormous screens out in the fairway area. But it's a unique venue, and it's kind of a unique vertical. This is not a typical restaurant vertical, right? Our buddy Joe Whitaker, who's on Matt Scott's AVWeek show quite a bit, he also has a restaurant business where it's called the Thoughtful Restaurant, because his home business is called the Thoughtful Home, where he goes in and he helps put AV into restaurants. This is not exclusively that either, because it's also a sports venue. It's also this, that, and the other. It's a unique venue. So, Gina, I'm going to start with you on this. When it comes to verticals like this and verticals like combination, right? This is a sports venue. It's also a bar and grill. It's also part entertainment as well. What other verticals are we kind of seeing emerging in the AV industry, and maybe what do we see? What verticals are we seeing kind of sliding down on the importance scale?
Well, so I appreciate you starting with me, because now I'm gonna sound like the idiot, but I keep on going back to higher ed, right? Because that's my background. I'm standing there talking to one of our contacts from one of the schools, and she's like, Gina, it's very interesting, some of the projects that we get to work on. We were opening up a new stable for our large animal veterinary school. And so much of what they're doing now is lecture capture and archive, and so that they can review with their students how they're working on these animals, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, give examples of what the instructor is using later on, and the tools and how to open up animals and things like that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I don't really know this is relevant to AV. How is this relevant to AV? She goes, we had to come up with such interesting ways of making our equipment dust proof, hay proof, outdoor proof, animal proof, hair proof. And I was like, interesting. This is super interesting to me, because when do you figure, Kelly, you must have done things like this all the time at Vadio. When do you figure that you're going to use a PTZ camera in a horse stall?
We would create domes to put them in.
Yeah. And then they were saying, and she said, where do you hang them? Where do you hang them so that the horses don't get all curious and start munching on things? And so everything has to be thought of. So another example was, we were talking to somebody at a school, this is terrible, a medical school that had a morgue, and when they were doing their anatomy class, they would have I know this
People are dying to get in there.
Oh.
We're sober, I swear.
And they were saying kind of the same thing. All of these specialty applications that a lot of this equipment was not made to be in these environments, and the integrator and the consultant have to be really creative with how to get around some of these challenges, whether they're indoor, outdoor, environmental, whether they're animals munching on cords, whether they're dead bodies with potential disease components, and you have to make sure that your equipment is enclosed so that there's no diseasey bacteria stuff getting sucked into the fans. So, gosh, this took a turn. But
Well, there was Halloween this week,
Well,
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on the hay proof part. So
Yeah.
Hey,
They don't have hay in New York. Tim.
hey.
You haven't seen it before.
You guys are making me cry, laugh.
Joel, same kind of question, and you can take it to whichever animal or mineral you want to. What other verticals do you see coming up?
Well, it's not even all their verticals. I mean, if we talk about what even Gina's saying with education, esports. I mean, now people are starting to build venues just for esports, and they have betting places in Vegas where it's an esports venue, and that's all they do. I know here Georgia State has done some things, not their own specific venue yet, but it's becoming more and more common where they're inviting people in. And then the other thing is a lot of these places where we've done AV historically are really amplifying what they're doing. I mean, if you look at education, you hear the word active learning. If you look in some of the corporate spaces, and they're putting AV in every single room as opposed to what it used to be, that one conference room, it's growing. And the augmented reality and virtual reality, we've only slightly scratched the surface of where this is going to go and what that's going to mean for AV, which I'm really excited about, the augmented reality. That's kind of exciting for some of the things that you had said earlier, Tim, above and beyond knowing who made digital signage, but it actually builds an experience for you as you're in a bar, club, or wherever else it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a piece that I wrote about some augmented reality that they're doing in stadiums, where some folks you're able to take a live shot of a player and get stats on what they're doing for your fantasy football team. If you're into fantasy football, it allows you kind of, as you're there live, it gives you a little bit more of an interaction as well.
And Tim, you mentioned stadiums, and I actually feel like when we look at, remember when a stadium used to be just about the sport, the game or whatever, but stadiums started, 15 years ago, really making them more like what you started off with Topgolf, where it was an experience for all kinds of people that were going. So if you wanted to see the game, or it was about the suite, or it was about a fine dining experience, or it's kind of all, it's about the audience coming in, and what things can AV do to make it incredibly memorable and different. And stadiums have been doing this for some time now.
Well, and to Corey's point, I mean, I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to go. I don't go to sports games very often, but going here to the new stadium we have for the Falcons in Georgia, or going to the new Brave Stadium, the experience that you get there makes me, who doesn't watch sports, want to go. The audio-video experience in the clubs and all the AV that's around, and at the Brave Stadium, just the experience you have on your way into the stadium, whether it be the digital signage, the lighting, and all the other components that come to be part of it. I never really thought that you would see me at a baseball game, and I actually now want to go because of that experience. It's pretty exciting.
Joel, you're absolutely right. I went to a Falcons game last Monday, and that venue is just exceptional. And when you walk in, you are pulled into that entire space as if, the game's not secondary, but you're just transformed once you walk through. The energy gets you, the lighting gets you, the interactivity gets you. I mean, it's incredible. And
I think the biggest emerging market is for integrators and manufacturers to be able to really talk about how to make it an experience, and really finding a way to find their own specialty in that and really selling that. I think that's, so it's really not is there a particular vertical, whether it be higher education or, morgues or, whatever, it's about how, whatever the space is, taking it beyond just the ask of, okay, we want to make this a active learning center. It's like, how do we take that up like 8 notches?
Right. And the way that people remember things, the way that people are loyal to things, the way that students are successful, and however you want to say it, is by that immersive experience. That's memorable, that's jarring, that's traumatic in a positive way, that's going to allow you to keep coming back more and more. So I mean, there's a true ROI on investing in that immersive kind of experience, from the audio to the lighting to the visual and everything in between the package.
All right, Kelly, you'll have the last step on this one. What other verticals do we see between education and stadiums and entertainment venues?
Well, I think kind of just, springboarding off what these guys have said, I think it's the opportunities for your community to participate in it is really big. So when I was at AVI, we did the botanical gardens. That was this huge lighting and sound and video immersive experience when you went to the botanical gardens, and it was just so cool, and everything from, doing events in your local area and having the city kind of get involved in it, or the community or the county or whomever, just for even just live events. That being said, I am curious to see how Topgolf does in Minnesota this winter, because we just got a new one when it's like 35 below.
So are all of them outdoor, indoor, or are some of them exclusively indoor?
They're all indoor, outdoor.
They're all indoor, outdoor, yeah.
But every bay has individually controlled heat.
That's true.
Oh.
At 35 below.
Yeah, but what if it's snowing? They close?
No, because it's all covered.
That is interesting. We're gonna have to try this.
I'm certain that there's one in New York, or in the New York
yeah, there are. I just have never had the opportunity. I will make the opportunity.
You should. All right. Last story here comes to us from Sound Vision Install. Indigo Distribution will be offering a free approved pre-programming service to customers purchasing a lawn control platform. This is a distributor giving away programming as part of the purchase. Understand, I used to be a programmer. I guess technically I still am a control programmer. I still do it from time to time. But Joel, we're going to start with you on this. What other services could or should maybe manufacturers and distributors offer integrators to help installs and ensure proper programming or proper setup?
Well, you're seeing a lot of them do something similar to this in general. Like, there was a quote in here that the technical manager had that the reason behind why Indiegogo is doing it is so the integrators can spend more time on the technical programming and commissioning of pulling all the systems together, basically, as opposed to only worrying about the control protocol and how that's set up. I know that I've heard of manufacturers now, even with AV over IP, you call them, you tell them what you're working on. They're going to pre-configure the AV over IP endpoints. They're going to test everything. And literally all the people are doing is taking out of the box, and then from that point, plugging into the network. And being that we're getting more into network, I really see that network consultation, that's becoming key. Us as a manufacturer, we know best how the product goes on the network. And it's not to say that the integrator may not know, it's just we deal with it every day. So we can work along with that integrator. And I see a lot more manufacturers doing this, working with the integrator and their customer to make sure when they get on site with that product, there's no surprises about the network configuration, what they need to do for open ports. Everything's ready for them when they're there. And I see that as professional services starting to emerge a lot more from, all manufacturers at this point.
Yeah. Corey, same kind of question. What should the manufacturers be offering, or even distributors? A lot of times in the U.S., QSC or manufacturers specifically are direct to the dealers, but overseas a lot of times it's through distributors. So, what should the distributors be kind of offering to help? Like Joel said, they can just take it out of the box and plug it in.
Yeah, so I think to just kind of chime into with what things that Joel's commented on, there are many things that we can do and offer beyond what we're currently offering. We have to think outside just supplying the box, and network config is a big one. I think that helping with just reviewing the overall design and offering another set of eyes on that, because time is currency, and if we can save time by doing that. At QSC, we do a lot of baseline files, and then we just email it because it may be one end user, so we know what their baseline file is as a start, but we always, with the caveat, it's a baseline file. The room characteristics likely are going to be somewhat different. So, but email that back and forth to the different integrators on the jobs, regardless of where they are around the world, helping them also think about the user interface, that GUI, what that looks like, and creating consistency there, helping provide even to the point of best practices for creating global standards and getting them to think and learn from other projects and users that we've worked with, being able to apply that, and just that knowledge share, I think is something that is tangible, that can be offered at a price, and people will see the value in it. And then, of course, I think a big common thing we saw at InfoComm this year, including by QSC, is the ability to offer the monitoring and management side of a deployment. So you might have a large corporate enterprise client or a large educational client, and to be able to monitor and manage and send, and do updates and offer that as a service, I think are just a few things that come to mind.
Absolutely. Kelly, same question. What should, you've been on both sides of this, both from the manufacturing and the integration side. What can manufacturers do to help these integrators? And should they?
I guess, there's two sides to it. There's the one side where it's, if the distributors are giving away programming, does that take away from the integration company's ability to do it and make some money on it, right? But then at the same time, I think about when I worked at AVI Systems and how many manufacturers we dealt with, and it was like we had 1 million manufacturers, tons of different technologies all over the board. So if a manufacturer can go one step ahead and help a little bit by doing stuff like that, hell yeah, why not? It's if whatever they can do, whether it's programming or support, or even like Corey said, remote monitoring, anything they can do to help an integrator, install quicker, make it work faster, make, the installation techs and designer, get them in and out, I think is positive for everyone.
All right, Gina, you'll have the last word on this. What should manufacturers do or distributors do to help integrators?
So from our standpoint, I agree with Corey and everything she said. We're helping with pre-sale design. We're helping integrators by bringing a lot of our product onto the network so that they can be remotely monitored. We're increasing the number of connection points on our products so that, no matter what you standardize on, you can still connect easy. I feel like what we're moving towards, that as a service model, the more that we can support the integrators in creating that recurring revenue business model, that's only going to help to support growth and support the stability of the industry. So once they start changing their business models into more as a service, what manufacturers can do is find products and find ways to package their products and find ways to support their products that support that business model. So everything that Corey said.
Everything that Corey said, that should actually be the title of this show. So,
Oh, and a great place to end.
Hashtag.
All right. Thank you so much. That will do it for this episode. Ms. Corey Schaefer, since we all agree with you, how do we find you and or QSC?
So QSC.com and Corey.Schaefer at QSC.com, or just Corey Schaefer, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. You'll find me.
All right. Very good. Ms. Kelly Perkins, thank you, ma'am. How do people find you?
K Perkins at NSCA.org. On Twitter at NSCA_Kelly.
All right, very good. Speaking of Gina, how do people find you?
I am on Twitter at Gina Sands. I am on LinkedIn, Gina Sansevero. I am at Atlas IED, Gina.Sansevero at atlasied.com.
Very well. And Mr. Carroll, sir, thank you. How do people find you or Wolf Vision?
Easy, joel.carroll at wolfvision.us or training at wolfvision.us, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Joel Carroll.
All right, very good. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me because I'm still complaining about the Bears, but go by the website if you would please, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. We actually also have a webinar coming up about digital signage and how to create consistent content for that. Comes up in 2 weeks, November 14th. So check that out. Also, while you're there, check out our underwriters. These are the folks who help us financially, helps us bring you AVWeek and Digital Signage Week in a couple months. ISE and Atlas IED is one of those. So we thank them for their support of that. So you can also follow us on Twitter. AVNation TV is our Twitter handle. So all that and more at avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.